action. For NPR News, I'm Jude Jaffe-Block in Phoenix.
Today is National Shakeout Day. It's a national earthquake preparedness effort. At 10:16 a.m. local time, people are encouraged to drop and cover to practice their response to a real earthquake should it occur. I'm Corva Colvin, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from the Pew Charitable Trust, driven by the power of knowledge to solve today's most challenging problems. At pewtrusts.org.
This is WAMU. I'm Matt Pesky. It's 62 degrees in Northwest DC at 8:06. It's time to get the latest check now on traffic from Jerry Edwards. Good morning, Jerry.
Well, good morning, all right. I think I've got myself back together now. All right, so there's a protest group, demonstrators coming on horseback, headed for downtown Washington and the Castle. Where they are exactly at this moment, I don't know, but I suspect they've been coming down the GW Parkway because we've been seeing delays develop for no apparent reason that we can nail. The route is scheduled to take them across the Roosevelt Bridge and out of Constitution. That's what I know right now. If you see the horses, give me a call, 202-885-3300.
First in news, solving traffic congestion may seem impossible given how jammed our roads are in the Washington area on a daily basis. But as transportation reporter Martin DeCaro tells us, close to 100 road projects and nearly 2 dozen transit proposals are in the pipeline to make getting around easier.
The projects are now included in the region's long-range transportation plan, meaning they have the green light to be built sometime between now and 2040. We're talking about dozens of highway expansions and new interchanges, plus transit projects like the Purple Line in Maryland and streetcar lines in D.C. Southeast Recon is the region's top transportation planner, but a project to get into their long-range plan, there has to be funding given to it. And that's the reason why Metro's Momentum program is not in the plan. Momentum is a multi-billion-dollar list of projects to expand Metro's full rail capacity, but the Transit Authority hasn't secured all the necessary funding.
It is definitely we're just not at this point. I am very hopeful because there continues to be discussions and efforts to find them.
Planners use this list of projects to determine if the region will meet its goals of reducing.
Royal welcome from a celebrity happy about Kansas City's win over the Orioles. First, let's go check on traffic this morning with Jack.
Well, we still have our slowdowns on 270 southbound. All your lanes are open, but your delay begins out of Clarksburg. Coming in from 109, passing 121, off and on all the way down to the lane divide and down the southbound spur. Topside outer loop slows 95 to George Avenue, 95 delay southbound begins in Calverton. To get onto both loops of the Beltway. An unusual delay right now, obviously it's not sun glare. Getting into College Park, headed toward Greenbelt Metro, nothing reported in the roadway. Some slow traffic on the Beltway, both loops, outer loop coming out of Landover, north of Richie Marlboro Road up to Lanham, inner loop, north Arena Drive, headed down toward the PRC Road, then very slow Branch Avenue headed across the Wilson Bridge into Alexandria. 395 northbound, slow to recover, your delay begins well, 495 in Springfield, headed up toward Glebe Road from an earlier crash, then we're slow to get to Pentagon to the 14th, coming off the westbound freeway, it is very slow from the 11th, across the 14th Street Bridge, headed south toward Washington Boulevard. May have some sort of an incident in the roadway, grabbing some sort of attention on the side of the roadway. 66 eastbound, just about connected now, getting out of Gainesville into Centerville. Then after the Fairfax County Parkway out toward Nutley, inbound Douglas Toll Road, it is still very slow after work traffic to approach 7 in the Lane Toll Plaza. Thankfully, the earlier crash inside the Beltway on the Connector Road, the 466, nothing left but a couple flares that are burning out on the left shoulder. We'll find we still have our slow traffic on the George Washington Parkway, southbound near the overlook toward the Key Bridge. Northbound has been slow getting north of the Memorial Bridge headed up towards Spout Run, but all travel lanes were reported open. We'll also find northbound 123 at Henderson Road. There had been an earlier crash that would block the left lane. We believe, finally, inbound Route 4 in Maryland up near Dower House Road, that broken down car finally cleared from the right lane. Traffic brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal Credit Union offers a variety of credit cards. Visit online at NavyFederal.org to find the cure that best fits your lifestyle. Just now hearing of the crash 28 northbound Virginia before the toll road. That is blocking the right lane. Jack Taylor, WTOP traffic.
Maybe a few peaks of sunshine today, but mainly clouds. And we'll also have some spotty drizzle, maybe a spotty shower. Temperatures in the low 70s. Overnight tonight, we drop to the 50s. Low 70s going tomorrow. And we'll also have sunshine. And then it cools down for the weekend. We'll stay around 70 on Saturday. Ooh, Sunday, right around 60 degrees. From the ABC 7 Weather Center, I'm Lauren Ricketts.
And outside the glass-enclosed Nerve Center, 57, 63 at Reagan National Airport. A little sunshine coming our way later on to get us to 70.
Live from the glass-enclosed Nerve Center, this is Washington's top news. 103.5 FM and WTOP.com. Here are Mike Moss and Joe Jones.
And a good Thursday morning to you. Well, Dulles is now one of 5 airports that are actively checking people for symptoms of Ebola. New screening measures for passengers coming from the hardest-hit regions in West Africa went into effect today.
Instead of landing and leaving the airport, passengers coming from Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea will need to go through a new process, answering questions about their health, travel, and possible exposure to Ebola. Federal agents will also take their temperature, and if they have a fever, they could be sent to a CDC quarantine area or a nearby hospital. At Dulles, the extra screening is expected to impact anywhere from 15 to 55 people every day. At Dulles International Airport, Nick Einelli, WTOP News.
I'm Jamie Forzato. As the CDC beefs up Ebola screenings at Dulles Airport, nearby hospitals are also preparing. Inova Fairfax will open an Ebola unit next week that has room to put up to 12 people in isolation. Reston Hospital Center is not only equipping staff with protective gowns and gloves, but going a step further and treating suspected Ebola cases like they would airborne illnesses. That means isolating patients in negative airflow rooms and providing respirator masks for healthcare workers. Questions have been raised about who could give the best care. 4 hospitals in the U.S. have biocontainment units, including the NIH and Bethesda. David Trump, Chief Deputy Commissioner of the Virginia Department of Health, says every hospital needs to be ready. Jamie Forzato, WTOP News.
Now, WTOP is examining the threat of Ebola in America and beyond during a special live town hall broadcast. It is Monday, October 20th at 10 a.m. It will be at the museum, and it's free to attend, but seating is limited, so you will need a ticket. Get details and register at WTOP.com and search Ebola.
Well, we want to get your thoughts this morning. How do you think the U.S. health workers have handled the Ebola situation?
I would think that a healthcare worker would know better than to get on an airplane when she has been exposed to someone with Ebola.
The Ebola situation is well beyond the ability of CDC to manage.
So the media is really blowing things out of proportion.
And Indira writes on our Facebook page, the CDC is downplaying the severity of Ebola. Well, we'd like to hear your thoughts, too. Call the WTOP Talkback line 877-222-1035, or join the conversation on our Facebook page, or tweet your thoughts with hashtag WTOP.
Coming up, it was an awful night for Orioles fans. Dave will explain. It's 8:14.
Feel prepared to take on a patient with Ebola. Sounds like people are not as ready as they thought they were.
Yeah, that's acknowledging reality, how people feel in hospitals. I mean, previously the CDC had been saying that any hospital could take care of a patient with Ebola. There are now discussions about whether patients would be better off in specialized facilities. There's 4 of them around the country, but they have a limited number of beds. And if people keep coming back from West Africa with Ebola, they may need to be treated at other hospitals. And the CDC now says it has a go team that it will immediately send to any hospital to advise on infection control.
No, thanks very much.
Thank you.
That's NPR's Nell Greenfield-Boyce this morning.
Now to a very different kind of fight, the battle against ISIS. Fighters defending the Syrian Kurdish town of Kobani say coalition airstrikes are helping them hold off ISIS militants. But Kobani's defenders say what they really need is for Turkey to open its border and allow Turkish Kurd fighters in to help them break the siege. Instead, Turkish authorities are detaining those Kurds as potential terrorists. NPR's Peter Kenyon has more.
Each day, the cars and vans climb over the rock-strewn paths and farm fields, avoiding Turkish military roadblocks to reach the hills overlooking the Syrian border and the town of Kobani. The coalition airstrikes continue to do damage, and Kurdish activists say there's now some level of coordination between the defenders on the ground and those providing air support. That claim was not confirmed by the U.S. military. 38-year-old Mustafa Ali is on the phone with a relative who's among the fighters still in Kobani.
Ali himself came to Turkey about a week ago after being stuck for 3 days at the border while ISIS shells landed not far away. He doesn't think Turkey will overcome its suspicion of all Kurds and intervene to save Kobani unless it gets a push from outside. As he speaks, the sound of automatic weapons fire floats across the border.
If the international community forces Turkey to support Kobani, it will. But without pressure from the Americans and the Europeans, they won't. Because Turkey thinks both sides in this fight are terrorists.
Adding to the pain of watching their town be destroyed a little more each day is the clear knowledge that they're not welcome here. Ali says Kurdish men, especially younger ones, are routinely stopped at the border. Many are then taken by Turkish authorities to detention centers where they're not charged with anything but investigated on suspicion of terrorism.
I know some of the guys who have been detained. They're political guys who are members of various Kurdish political parties, and the Turks want them and they help them. I was told there were as many as 200 of them, and some chose to go back to Syria.
From Eric Bear shifting to play with Jason Shimera and Joel.
Up in the border town of Suruc, it's a relatively happy day as these things go. Their Turkish hosts are digging trenches between the neat rows of family-sized gray tents and the electric cables. Kobani families appreciate the shelter they've been given. The 34-year-old Mohammed Sheikh, a Muslim, says the way the Turks are treating the detained Kurdish men is unjust. He calls one of the detainees on the phone. 25-year-old Walid Yasser says he was detained 11 days ago. He says the Turkish officials gave them 3 choices, all of which involved being sent back to one of the Kurdish enclaves in northern Syria. Yasser says it's because the Turks think they're with the People's Protection Units, the Syrian Kurds linked to Turkey's own Kurdish militants known as the PKK. He claims he has nothing to do with any of that, but the Turks don't believe it. Overlooking the border, Kurdish men who fled Kobani have arranged themselves in columns to chant support for the defenders of their town. They say they're ready to fight ISIS with stones if necessary, but while the display may look impressive on television, these men know they won't be crossing any borders tonight. They'll be back again tomorrow to watch their homes take another pounding. Peter Kenyon, NPR News, Southeastern Turkey.
And now this, the Kansas City Royals still have not lost a playoff baseball game since 1985. 28 consecutive seasons since that World Series victory in 85, they did not have any postseason games at all.
This year, the Royals snuck in as a wild card team and just kept winning.
They finished off the Baltimore Orioles yesterday, so fans like Angelo Santos will see the Royals in the World Series.
I haven't washed my underwear / Royal shirt since the wild card game.
Underwear / Royal shirt. Is that one garbage or 2 garbage? Anyway, he's going to stick with it, whatever it is.
Yeah, I've been wearing the same ones. It's fine. I'm very superstitious, and I feel like it's the same thing that's been going on.
And here's something a little less personal about the Royals. They don't swing for the fences. Kansas City hit the fewest home runs of any team this season.
But they stole the most bases, playing small ball, as it's called, advancing runners 1 base at a time, and winning 1 game at a time.
Kansas City.
Of course, the Royals' victory came at the expense of the Baltimore Orioles. This morning for a lot of Orioles fans around our region. Good morning, I'm Matt McCleskey. It's 62 degrees in Northwest BC at 8:19. It's time to get the latest look at traffic from Jerry Edwards. Good morning, Jerry.
Matt, good morning, everyone. I have been validated thanks to Nancy, Candace, Michael, and a bunch of you letting me know that, yeah, I'm not crazy. There are horses staged at Key Bridge Marriott right now. Looks like the outbound lanes to Key Bridge are blocked by Metropolitan Police in preparation for the horses coming across the Key Bridge using the outbound lanes to get inbound. Then they'll eventually go up Constitution Avenue and yada, yada, yada. So in the meantime, thank you all for letting me know that the horses and the cow people really do exist, and they are demonstrators heading for the cow. Moving on. South of town, Wilson Bridge still heavy, but the travel lanes are open. Eastbound Dulles Toll Road. The Dulles connector between the Beltway and 66, that crash now is over to the shoulder. If you're coming in on 270, still heavy, but no incidents currently reported yet. Matt,
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for tracking down those details. Our weather today, some actually clouds around this morning. Otherwise, will be partly to mostly cloudy. We'll have highs reaching the upper 60s to near 70 this afternoon, and there's about a 30% chance of a shower or two in the late afternoon and evening. Should clear out overnight with lows in the mid-50s, and tomorrow looks to be a sunny day with highs in the low 70s.
Support for WAMU 88.5 comes from General Dynamics Information Technology, providing your enterprise as a service with secure federal cloud solutions. General Dynamics IT, gdit.com/cloud. And from JK Moving Services, with dedicated experts trained in moving offices and employees across town or across the country. More at jkmoving.com/worry-free. And from Geico, offering motorcycle insurance since 1978. More on motorcycle insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO.
At 10 today on the Diane Rehm Show, an update on the civil rights protests in Ferguson, Missouri, and their political implications. That's at 10. You're listening to Morning Edition at 8:21.
More now from American Made, our look at the changing face of American manufacturing. This morning, a company that's been in business for more than a century, producing dinnerware on the banks of the Ohio River in Newell, West Virginia. Most American ceramics factories closed long ago, unable to compete with made in Japan or Mexico. But the Homer Laughlin China plant is still going strong, 141 years after opening, employing about 1,000 people. You might be familiar with its most famous product. It's that brightly colored pottery called Fiesta. NPR's Linda Wertheimer, who grew up with Fiesta, jumped at the chance to visit the factory.
My mother collected a warm yellow. My Fiesta is deep cobalt blue, just so you know where I stand. Fiesta is about half Homer Laughlin's business. The other half is dinnerware for hotels and the sturdy plates and cups you find at chain restaurants. Walk into the big, dim factory buildings, dusty and smelling of mud, and you might be back at Homer Laughlin's beginnings in the 19th century. People are sitting quietly in pools of light, carefully attaching handles to greenware. That's not yet fired coffee cups. Decorators are painting bands of color on glazed plates.
I'm just a hand liner. I put lines on. The orders tell me I need to put a 3/32, an eighth from the edge, and a 3/64, a 16th below, and a 3/64 verge.
Kevin Mannypenny has worked in the Homer Laughlin factory since he was a teenager. He twirls the plate, dips a brush in brown glaze, and paints 3 delicate lines on the plate's edge. This plate is for a Boston restaurant. Mannypenny finishes the plate and then tosses it onto a broad moving belt as if he were skipping a stone across water. Who plays catcher down the other end?
A younger brother.
James Mannypenny, I go by Jim. I'm a kiln placer. I place ware on the kiln. It's not supposed to hit the floor.
He calls the ovens which fire the china kilns, spelled K-I-L-N-S, but potters don't pronounce that N. 7 out of 8 of the Mannypenny siblings and their parents have worked at this factory, and there are dozens of families like theirs. Brothers founded the company, Homer and Shakespeare Laughlin, presumably a literary family. They jumped on a new fashion for whiter, more refined dinnerware. Sarah Beaudry of the area's ceramic museum described their beginnings.
They were the young whippersnappers in the pottery world, and they were the ones who ended up successfully firing 4 kills worth of whiteware before any of the other potteries could, and then they won a prize of $5,000, and that's what launched the Laughlin brothers into pottery production on a big scale.
Around the turn of the 20th century, the company changed hands. The new team built a new plant on the West Virginia side of the river, and those long, low factory buildings are still in use today. Then, in the 30s, the company created Fiesta, cheap, colorful, cheerful dinnerware. It was a hit even in the Depression. In 1948, Homer Laughlin really stepped up the production of plates and bowls. They designed and built their own machine inside the factory. Dave Conley, a longtime employee and unofficial company historian, calls it the Big Flat Automatic.
This is the flat automatic there. We've got 3 machines here, and each one has 2 heads on it, so theoretically we could be making 6 different items at a time.
He said that's 3,000 dozen pieces every 8-hour shift. People who make dishes talk in dozens, you'll have to do the math. I'm giving you the history because it's all still happening. The buildings, the machines, the kills, Fiesta, and the owners are all still going. Of course, there have been improvements. Computers control the firing now. A 3D printer speeds the design process. Ceramic engineers found a way to make glaze shiny without using lead, all done in-house.
The people that owned our company have always put profits back into the plant to modernize. And we've always had state-of-the-art equipment. And I call that state-of-the-art even though it's as old as it is. It's 60 years old.
He's talking about the big flat automatic. It still works. By this time, we had walked the entire 37-acre factory floor and were standing on a loading dock. But inside the old buildings, on the chilly day we were there, with fog pouring off the Ohio River and drifting into the windows, we watched the wear come out of the fire, magically transformed. Creamy orange, intense red, vivid turquoise, bright pottery stacked in bins and crates piled all over the place.
I remember the first time I actually went to the facility and looking around, and I'm thinking, boy, am I back in the 1940s or what? I mean, even the office, it isn't all spruced up. It's the old look, and they're focused on making product and not being flashy.
That's Bruce Smith, head of the union representing the pottery workers. He says while nothing about Homer Laughlin is flashy, the workers do make decent money.
You know, they are good jobs, and they're making a living, being able to buy a home and raise a family and retire with some dignity.
Both management and labor consider that an achievement.
I'm very proud to have kept this business here in the Ohio Valley. It's very important to us.
Elizabeth Wells McIlvaine is the first woman to lead Homer Laughlin and the fourth generation of her family to run the plant. Her immediate family now owns most of the business. She told us that Homer Laughlin China stopped producing Fiesta for a time in the 70s. Harvest Gold and Avocado Green didn't sell. But in 1986, Bloomingdale's department store came calling, looking for a retro china for their stores, and Homer Laughlin made a typical practical decision. Restart an old line, revive Fiesta for retail sale, along with their existing hotel and restaurant business.
We have two sides of the business, and that's helped us tremendously. Because it seems when one side of the business, the retail side of the business, is flourishing, the hotel side is having problems, it's having difficulties, and vice versa.
It helps that Fiesta has a big fan base. Collectors stand in line for hours to get into the factory tent sales. Fans meet, they swap, they critique the company's color choices, and they wait for the new Fiesta color, which is unveiled each March.
Oh, they always have suggestions. So one year, when they all wanted fuchsia, and they all arrived to Homer Laughlin to go on their tours dressed in whatever fuchsia they had. That was their silent but very loud statement.
The folks at the factory steered us away from fuchsia as next year's color. Manufacturing problems, they said. But they offered no color clues, says Miss McIlvaine.
That's a very deep, dark secret. Not to be told.
I'm Linda Wertheimer for NPR News.
Support for American Made comes from Timken Steel, creating customized alloys for demanding applications. Timken Steel. Yes, it's possible. Learn more at timkensteel.com. And from Zurich, providing risk management and insurance solutions for those who truly love their business. Learn more at zurichna.com.
This is NPR News.
Turn right on Crescent Lane.
You're listening to Morning Edition on WAMU 88.5. Good morning. Later today at 10 on the Diane Rehm Show, an update on the civil rights protests in Ferguson, Missouri, and then look at their political implications. That's the Diane Rehm Show at 10.
Support for WAMU 88.5 comes from Pepco, offering customers online energy management tools through My Accounts to help them save energy. Learn more at pepco.com. And from the Sanjay K. Bonsall Foundation, dedicated to helping people help themselves through improved access to information.
No.
In 300 feet. Turn
Good
right on
afternoon,
North
I'm
Cleve
the
Road.
Andy Show. Montgomery County School Superintendent Joshua Starr
Turn right on North Cleve
overcrowding,
Road.
changing demographics, and the new discipline policy. Then at 1, a Maryland Lieutenant Governor's debate. The candidates join us in studio to address guns, taxes, and health care. The Kojo Nandi show today at noon here on WAMU 88.5 and streaming at kojoshow.org.
It's 8:30.
Good morning. I'm Steve Inskeep. Mark and Brenda Voss are living the dream. The Missouri couple had a home built in Florida. 5 bedrooms, theater, game room, pool, ocean views. The trouble is the builder put the house on the wrong lot, which the Vosses do not own. 2 surveyors made a mistake. The Flagler County property assessor says the case may end up in court. But he's not stunned by this error, saying, quote, it happens from time to time.
Excuse me, Steve, that's my chair.
Oh, sorry. It's Morning Edition.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. With a second Texas healthcare worker being treated for Ebola, President Obama is ordering a more aggressive response from the federal government. The White House says the president has cleared his schedule again today to deal with concerns about the virus. That second healthcare worker from the Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital in Dallas is now being treated at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta. 29-year-old Amber Vinson is among those who cared for Thomas Eric Duncan, the Liberian man who died of Ebola at the hospital last week. The president says everything's being looked at.
We are reviewing every step of what's happened since Mr. Duncan was initially brought in to the hospital in Dallas so that we understand exactly where some of the problems may have occurred.
The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Dr. Thomas Frieden, says Vinson should never have been allowed to fly on a commercial airliner, having been exposed to the virus. Dr. Frieden will be on Capitol Hill today, updating members of a House subcommittee about Ebola. Spain's government says it made mistakes in its initial response to Ebola. As Lauren Freyer reports, the country had the first transmission of the virus outside West Africa.
After days of silence, Health Minister Ana Mato has admitted to Parliament there were lapses in Spain's response to Ebola.
Es verdad que hay que mejorar. Es verdad que hay que cambiar algunas cosas.
It's true, we need to improve and change things, she said, because we had a transmission of Ebola here in Spain that never should have occurred. Medical staff say they got 15 minutes of Ebola training and that strict quarantine of patients wasn't followed. An assistant nurse caught Ebola from a Spanish missionary who'd returned from West Africa for treatment. About 100 people are still being monitored for exposure to the infected nurse. Spain's Ebola alert is expected to last into November. For NPR News, I'm Lauren Freyer in Madrid.
Officials in Hong Kong are now agreeing to meet with pro-democracy protest leaders. NPR's Frank Langford says talks are likely next week.
Hong Kong officials said they will discuss the 2017 vote for the city's next chief executive, but emphasized Beijing will never accept protesters' demands for an open election. Ronnie Tan, who handles Hong Kong's relations with mainland China, spoke at a press conference.
We both have to be realistic. There are many years ahead for our young students. If they can just step in a little bit and look beyond 2017, maybe many of the aspirations could be addressed in future years as well.
The offer of talks is a victory of sorts for the protesters, who are sure, though, to view it with skepticism. The government agreed to talks last week, only to cancel them after protest numbers dwindled. Frank Langford, NPR News, Hong Kong.
Bermuda's International Airport is closing tonight as Hurricane Gonzalo approaches. It's now a Category 4 storm. This is NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from CarMax, offering more than 35,000 used cars and trucks, online and in stores from coast to coast. Learn more at CarMax.com.
This is WAMU 88.5. Good morning. I'm Matt McCleskey. You're listening to Morning Edition. It's 63 degrees in Northwest D.C. at 8:34, 57 in Germantown, Maryland, at 59 in Springfield, Virginia. Let's get the latest look now at traffic from Jerry Edwards. Good morning, Jerry.
Matt, good morning. A couple of serious things to tend to now. Southbound Branch Avenue, Route 5 at Surratt Road, a very serious multi-vehicle collision. Rescue crews are on the scene right now. Branch Avenue southbound, possibly even northbound, is completely closed to traffic, so find an alternate. Also, Metropolitan Police telling us of a crash closing inbound Suitland Parkway at Stanton Road. Again, avoid the area if you possibly can. We heard from Stephen telling us of a car stop, Central Lane, BW Parkway southbound before Route 50 inside the Beltway. Delays which were starting to clear out, beginning to redevelop. And thank you both for that, Stephen. Wilson Bridge, no late issues. The horses have made it across the Key Bridge, varying from the route that we were told, so not sure where they are, but Key Bridge reopen once again. Matt?
Thanks, Jerry. Just ahead, we'll get a look at today's weather. First, in the district, a prominent rabbi is pleading not guilty to charges he secretly filmed women who were bathing at a synagogue in Georgetown. He was arrested earlier this week on misdemeanor voyeurism charges. District reporter Patrick Madden has more.
Any comments? Rabbi Barry Freundel didn't say a word as he left the courthouse, got in a car, and sped away. Emma Shulevitz was there with her husband to watch the rabbi face the charges in person. She attended the synagogue where the rabbi is accused of secretly filming at least 6 women.
It makes you wonder, where are the other cameras? What was he using them for? It's a bit humiliating.
Freundel is charged with 6 counts of misdemeanor voyeurism. He faces up to 6 years in prison, though prosecutors said in court this is just the beginning of the investigation. He's accused of setting up a secret recording device inside a digital clock radio. Authorities say he filmed women in the shower as well as the mikveh, a Jewish ritual bath. The recording device was later turned over to police, who say they found evidence of the rabbi setting up the camera as well as videos of 6 women. The rabbi pleaded not guilty to the charges. He was released and is due back in court November 12th. He's been ordered to stay away from the synagogue as well as the alleged victims in the case. In the district, I'm Patrick Madden.
Virginia's Governor Terry McAuliffe has unveiled his proposal to address a $2.4 billion budget shortfall. And as Tommy McNeil reports, the plan would mean layoffs for 565 state employees, 90% in the Department of Corrections.
The department will attempt to shift some corrections employees into different positions. But in addition to the layoffs, much of the Powhatan Correctional Center is closing, and the opening of a women's correctional facility will be delayed. The governor says many unfilled positions will be left vacant, and there will be cuts in 4 primary areas, including more than $192 million from the executive branch. He broke that down into fiscal years.
$30 million each year from local governments and $102 million in unobligated balances in fiscal year 15 and $262 million for fiscal year 16.
McAuliffe also says the cost of distilled spirits at state ABC stores will go up. Although it is not a state-operated facility, it was announced that Colonial Downs Racetrack will be closing, which would impact revenues from recreation and agriculture. The governor also plans to sell 1 plane in the Virginia State Police fleet and not fill 27 vacant state trooper positions. Reporting from Richmond, I'm Tommy McNeil.
In Maryland, Democrats have tried to make guns a major topic during this year's gubernatorial election. And as Maryland reporter Matt Bush tells us, the next issue they want to push is mass transit.
Several Democratic leaders from Montgomery and Prince George's counties will hold a press conference this afternoon discussing their support of the Purple Line and the differences between the Democratic and Republican nominees' stances on the mass transit project that would connect the Bethesda and New Carrollton Metro rail stations. Montgomery County Executive Isaiah Leggett and the heads of both counties' councils are scheduled to speak. Democratic nominee Anthony Brown supports the construction of the Purple Line and in his current role as Lieutenant Governor was a staunch proponent of a multi-year hike in Maryland's gas tax that will in part pay for it. Republican nominee Larry Hogan has been very critical of the gas tax increase and is about to roll it and other tax hikes past the last 8 years back if he's elected. Hogan has also stated he wants more focus on road construction as opposed to mass transit. I'm Matt Bush.
The running mates for both Brown and Hogan, Ken Ullman and Boyd Rutherford, will hold their lone debate of the campaign season during today's Kojo Nnamdi show here on WAMU 88.5. That's in the 1 o'clock hour. Let's get a look now at weather for this Thursday. And with that, here's NBC4 meteorologist Amelia Siegel.
Thanks, Matt. For today, plenty of clouds, but no heavy rain in the forecast like we experienced yesterday. Just the chance of an afternoon or evening shower. It would be light in nature. A high temperature today around 70 degrees. For tonight, skies become mainly clear and temperatures plummet, low of 55. For tomorrow on Friday, mostly sunny, pleasant. A high of 73. Plenty of sun on Saturday, a high around 70, and then cooler on Sunday with a high only around 60. I'm News 4 meteorologist Amelia Siegel.
Thanks, Amelia. And it's 63 degrees now in Northwest D.C. I'm Matt McCleskey, WAMU 88.5 News.
Support for WAMU 88.5 comes from Chevy Chase Acura Nissan, celebrating 75 years on Wisconsin Avenue in Bethesda.